Here's the thing, guys. There are some games we all know and love, but there are those that maybe don't get as much love and deserve it. Today, we wanted to highlight some underrated games that you should check out.
It's a Ranger!
Not just any Ranger. That's Jersey.
Starting off at number 15, you might not be surprised to see this game, Rage 2. That's right, we're starting hot. Now, I'm not saying it's the best game on this list, but it's a perfect example of what we were just talking about. Underrated gems. Rage 2 didn't exactly set the world on fire when it launched, and I think it sold less than people realize. It's a Bethesda-published game, yet it barely gets mentioned. Time to give it some love. Originally, Rage 2 was meant to evolve from the first Rage. Better AI, a bigger open world, more detailed environments, and more involved shooting. But when Avalanche Studios came on board, the vision got streamlined. What could have been a deeper, more ambitious open world experience ended up as a tight, high-octane shooter. And honestly, that's not a bad thing. The shooting in Rage 2 is fantastic. Guns feel great, movement is tight, and a few mutant powers add even more versatility. It's not the most complex or challenging shooter, but it's pure fun. Think of it like a popcorn movie. Maybe not high art, but wildly entertaining. Some critics note that the open world can feel a bit empty, mostly serving as a playground for mutant monsters and goons. The story wraps up abruptly too, leaving you wishing there was a bit more, but what's here is still a blast. With its low price nowadays, or if you catch it on a streaming service, Rage 2 is absolutely worth a try for any shooter fan. Next, over at number 14, we have Shadows of Doubt. So this one may have started in early access, but it's now fully released. And what's here is pretty damn compelling. It's a first-person detective game set in a fully simulated voxel city, where every citizen has their own name, job, and routine. They're not randomly generated in my case, they're just struggling to exist and do jobs while you struggle to exist and solve crimes. Now, like a lot of recent immersive sims, there's a single high-quality handcrafted case here to get you started and also teach important game mechanics, and it's really exceptional. This is like a kind of gimmicky, cool, real-time detective game system taken to its full extreme, and it just works. So much care went into this one case that I would have been honestly completely satisfied if it was the only case in the game. If this was like a one mystery type deal, like you see in the case of the Golden Idol or similar games, but that's not the end. After the introductory first case, you're pretty much let loose to solve endless random cases as long as you can survive. Every day, you've got to eat, drink, and sleep, which means making money one way or another. And being a detective really doesn't pay the bills here. You're mostly following up on a bunch of crimes that you probably couldn't care less about, that honestly barely pay anything, even if you do solve them. You know, rent's coming up, so you might start eyeing some more pursuable crimes. So while it did come out in early access, the stuff that's there keeps you busy, but kind of like doing odd jobs. It's the real life stuff, founded with the bullets of the detective stuff, that makes the whole experience feel so unique. It's one thing to have a game where you play a detective. It's another thing to have a detective game where you play as a guy who has to steal to survive. It's got such a unique vibe going on, and if the developer manages to keep going and just keep building on this game, we're probably going to be talking about this a lot more in the future. Next up at number 13, it's Atlas Fallen. Now this game didn't exactly set the world on fire with its reviews. I mean, who am I kidding? This is an underrated gem. A lot of people didn't jump into this one, didn't really talk about it, but it's good, man. I felt like people slept on it. So yeah, this is one of those kinds of games. It's a semi-open world action RPG with some excellent combat. If you're here, you probably already knew that, but still, I'm trying to hammer home the point of this one. There are some awkward elements to it, sure. I mean, you know, the world is undercut by this kind of basic character faces and animations. Also, the hub world is just kind of lifeless, but once you get outside and the game really gets going, you kind of forget all that, because the world of Atlas Fallen is like the main character here. Yeah, combat is mostly the reason we're throwing it on this list, because it is pretty sick for a AA level game, but the real unsung hero is the world. It's desolate and empty of life, but that kind of serves to make exploring it more intriguing, especially since your main method of travel is sand surfing, so it's like really fast and really satisfying and easy to get around. With more games kind of like trending towards that Breath of the Wild or Elden Ring style of world with like these vast open spaces to facilitate wide exploration rather than games that lean towards more lateral world building with a lot more like platforming or dense vertical tight spaces, this is the one, man. You know, Atlas Fallen sits comfortably somewhere in the middle, and that makes it pretty refreshing and, considering how big of a game it is, pretty fun to play. Next at number 12, we have Metal Hellsinger. Now, I know a lot of us are on the fence about hybrid games, you know, games that take two seemingly unrelated genres and just smush them together, and sometimes they don't really work. But Metal Hellsinger is one of the games where, like, doing that really works pretty damn brilliantly. Metal Hellsinger is a first-person shooter rhythm game. On the one hand, you're shooting guns at monsters. On another, you're trying to pull all of it off on the beat. It's such a mainstream, understandable, simple idea here, and yet it just feels so refreshing. So for most of the time in this game, you're fine just sticking to rhythm game stuff. The better you are at the rhythm, the more it contributes to the shooting. Like, the weapons become more powerful. You get both a steep point rate and you get vocals added to the soundtrack, which makes the game even more awesome. But the shooting also helps you with the rhythm stuff. Metal Hellsinger plays pretty close to Doom Eternal. It's monster rooms followed by some brief platforming. You get some rewards along the way, little enhancements, some challenges, and then boss fights at the very end of each level. The shooting is not as good as Doom's, of course, but it still does feel amazing. But the real reason you're probably playing this, besides the rhythm stuff, of course, is the music. You gotta highlight the music here, man. It is incredible throughout. The songs are mostly made for the game, so you're not just getting a bunch of random tracks thrown together. Like, you're getting a game with a bespoke soundtrack made specifically for this game, and it absolutely works. With that said, like, this game lives or dies on how much you can stand metal vocals. If you don't really care about metal music, then probably only like half the game's gonna work for you. But if you like the music, then this game is one of the best rhythm games and one of the best FPS games of recent times. It's like peanut butter and crazy, well, what I consider awesome music. Look, I'm a little biased because I'm a metal man myself, but still, either way, you gotta appreciate the uniqueness, and it's worth trying. Next, over at number 11, we have Enslaved: Odyssey to the West. This 2010 game rarely gets brought up anymore, but it's worth a shout here. This is essentially a sci-fi journey to the West. You know, the old story where the Monkey King character is voiced by Andy Serkis. Tripitaka is some tech girl and the world's ended, so there's robots everywhere. Yeah, I know it sounds corny as hell, but it does actually work. If you just give it a minute and roll with it, you can tell that the story is pretty good. The characters are pretty endearing. But nobody likes this in retrospect, but there's a loss of old school game quality, you know? Where games back in the day seemingly weren't afraid to have annoying sidekick characters or scenarios with, like, I don't know, insane pointless final third arm plot twists. Sometimes that's the thing people complain about in modern games, but when these games all seemingly were like this, it didn't feel like they were trying to put in all these old school things to please old school gamers. There are a lot of positive things about this game, but be warned, it is like old school corny for better or worse. Also, it's a little mechanically simple. I know some modern gamers find it a bit annoying. There's a lot of uncharted climbing around, and the combat is pretty button mashy, not super complex. But if you can get in the groove of it, and those things don't bother you, then I think what remains is like a pretty solid adventure game with some really excellent moments. It's also pumped up by some truly excellent atmosphere. The soundtrack makes the world even more fantastic. Enslaved is very much a game of its time, but in this case, it's in ways that make it better than the sum of its parts. That said, it's really an old school game, and if you don't have a PS3 or Xbox 360, the only way to play it is on PC. I think it's worth seeking out. Next at number 10, we have Just Cause 3. Now look, with this one, gamers, it's easy to look at the series and say, yeah, I get it, I understand what it is. You know, it's one of those games that doesn't really change much. It is what it is, you know what it is, you blow stuff up, and that's about it. But it really is more than that. It is about how you take things out, and considering what you can do in these games, there's really nothing else quite like it out there. Really, it should be celebrated a little more than it is. Despite some insane support from the modding community, there hasn't really been a lot of public hubbub about it. I feel like a lot of mainstream gamers or casual gamers maybe didn't really catch wind of this one. You know, the mainstream didn't really catch on to what makes these games so interesting, but we think they deserve a bit more attention. You know, we all like a sandbox game once in a while, right? Well, this is like a true sandbox. It's just a bomb game with some boring or inoffensive post-apocalyptic story stuff. No, there's a lot going on here. And the reason we chose specifically number 3 is that when you boot it up and when you play a little bit of it, it really just gets the job done. This game is just joyful mayhem right from the get-go, so it's perfect for just a no-pressure type of game like this. Sure, they can be fun if you really want to mess around with them, and they do offer a lot of crazy ways to just, I don't know, play your own way in a game world. But it's comforting sometimes for certain games to just really feel just like a video game every once in a while. That's what this series is, and it really, really works. Sure, Just Cause 3 has some problems, namely the crystal chaining equipment and supply cap is a little bit annoying, but the main star is the new wingsuit, which is just awesome for speeding up travel in this sandbox and doing a lot of crazy stunts. Sometimes we just like to fly around and blow things up casually here, man. It's just some simple gaming fun. You guys should definitely give it a shot.
He's already got it!
Next on the list at number 9, we have Mad Max. I can't believe we're still talking about this game. This is one we've covered on lists before because it really should get more love and attention, but people still kind of aren't talking about it. We still think it's underrated and underappreciated. The movie franchise is still alive and well, so people are probably coming around to it. We've expressed our love for this game quite a few times since its 2015 release. Initially, it was mostly overlooked, likely due to it coming out at the same time as the new film, and also right alongside the release of big, competitor giant Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. And things are about to get hitched, but obviously Metal Gear Solid was going to dominate. Mad Max, though, a few years after release, is a modern cult classic. Like, it's an open-world game where the world's ending. You basically play as Max Rockatansky, doing what he does best, getting screwed over, going off rails, doing his own thing, and preferably making things right along the way. Max gets mixed up with a bunch of war boys, and there's a lot of stuff to deal with. He gets some new allies like the Chum Bucket that helped him into building some crazy car upgrades, etc. And really, there's a lot to like here. And for some people, I think it maybe doesn't quite go hard enough and get all legend-like with the Mad Max stuff, but I still found it effective enough. Yes, admittedly, it is a slightly repetitive game. It's not the biggest open world game or quite as high budgeted as some of these giants, but it's got its charm and it's got good stuff to it. While the Max that you play as is like kind of a Batman with a gun and a shotgun, the car stuff is so much fun on its own. Sure, not the most in-depth driving simulator I've ever played, but for an open world game released during that time, it feels pretty damn good, and the game does a lot with it. When you get into that open world, driving around and blowing up cars is just incredibly fun here. Road Rage doesn't necessarily get any better than this. We really think it's worth checking out. Look, it didn't have the exact same people involved or the same dude at the helm as the newest Mad Max films, but it really did the proper job. Next, over at number 8, we have Call of Juarez Gunslinger. I love this one, and for many people, this is like the best Call of Juarez game, and honestly, I think it's interesting. If I call it the best Call of Juarez game, it can also be like one of the best Western games. We don't really get a lot of these anymore. However, this one all comes down to like a $15 price point, and it is a little short. But it's memorable as hell and fun as hell. Sure, it's not Red Dead Redemption as in depth, but you know the old saying, if you can't get to heaven, you may as well raise hell. Well, that's kind of the vibe here. Anyway, while the previous 3 games are more traditional in how they tell their stories, Gunslinger is literally being narrated as you're playing it through a former gunslinger's experience as he's telling a story of an audience or like an old bar crew.
Most everyone thought it was the Ruales who had come up against him in Guadalupe Canyon, but it was just me.
Obviously, he's getting some things mixed up and exaggerated, as old-timers might sometimes. We all do this, it's normal. Things aren't always depicted as they happen, but that's kind of the point. Feels like a first-person shooter, six-gun justice-type deal, like a funhouse kind of thing, and it's great. It may not be people's ideal Western game, but still pretty damn fun. The guns feel amazing, and the action is frantic but tight. It has this whole weird competitive aspect that keeps getting thrown in with like this Swished-in-style point system. It's kind of a soft score attack shooter, I guess, but it's so much fun to blast through that stuff, and the total package is just rock solid. Now, to be clear, the game doesn't really look anything like the subject of the demo with what I'm talking about, but it's always incredible how somehow what the gameplay trailer is depicting remains extremely accurate. But still, if you're looking for a gold standard where non-static storytelling works, I think this does it. For the easy price tag and the amount of game you get here, it's not gonna change your life, it doesn't rock the world. Well, it kind of might because it's that good, but I don't know. Either way, this is an underrated game and we think it deserves more attention, especially now where we're starving for good Western games. Next over at number 7, it's Crosscode from indie developer Radical Fish Games. This one is quite a special game. Now, before you even get to it, just a heads up, this is one of those meta video game story type games where your characters are playing an MMO. I think the story is ultimately compelling, but it just takes a bit to get over the fact that, yes, back at release, we were wondering when the meta real life MMO story stuff is gonna go away. But I digress. Crosscode really is a feast, and it's huge. It's another one of those games that might be hard to get into at first, but we promise you it's worth sticking with. What appears to be like a slow, clicky game actually has like a pretty interesting leisurely pace, and it's got a really solid core RPG mechanics. Crosscode at first seems like a simple game, but once you take down your first boss or traverse through specifically constructed dungeons, it's clear there's a lot more under the hood. This is a classic feeling retro RPG, and there's honestly very little here that we have negative stuff to say about. The rest of the game, I mean, like the storytelling might drag on a bit long at times, could have used a speed up option maybe. But still, even stilted movement doesn't really damage the game that much. It's just a solid RPG, and really it's such an impressive game. Considering how late the development originally started, way back in 2012, it's amazing they managed to get this thing made at all. We're glad it turned out extremely well. Next over at number 6, we actually got another old school one here. It's Alice Madness Returns. It's a little crusty at this point, but this game is special. This is the 2011 sequel to the original American McGee's Alice. It's like a PC cult classic, and it's still one of the darkest games out there. The sequel, directed by McGee, improved upon the original in almost every way. It made the platforming more considered, gave Alice a wider array of weapons to use and defeat the insane denizens of Wonderland, and made the story more like a dark horror fantasy. Now, fair warning, the graphics have aged not well at all. Like most Unreal Engine 3 games, this looks pretty ropey now, and warts and all, the game's worth seeking out. But really, at this point, it's only on PC. Give it a try, go through the nostalgia of it. You might only play a couple of hours, but if you're not already scared away by the strange art direction or the really unconventional and sometimes unwieldy gameplay, this can be a bit ponderous at times, then I do think there's some good stuff to be found here. It also helps that this game's longest levels are actually the best. There's this super crazy, memorable doll level board where you run into fish people, the madcap level. What that adds to the game and the entire experience as a whole just makes it a journey worth playing, specifically getting to the end here. Just know you're in for something extremely weird and extremely unorthodox. This ain't no walk in the park game, but just know there are only a few games like this. It's a dark fantasy platformer that is considerably slower paced than pretty much anything else ever made, nor has been made like this. It deserves more love. I know it blew up in popularity for a little bit, but people seem to be forgetting or just not talking about it anymore. Maybe it can inspire more games like this, we don't know. Next over at number 5, we have The Sinking City. In terms of Lovecraftian mystery games, 2022's The Case of the Golden Idol is probably the better game. But if you just want to go crazy and get lost in some straight up Lovecraftian horror, The Sinking City's got you covered. It's a weird game, definitely not the fully open world experience it pretends to be. Instead, it's more like a string of small, extremely linear crime scenes, each with these cosmically influenced parameters that make them super intriguing. Now, I'll be honest, some of these mysteries do kind of lean toward bigger, more obvious stuff, and they can feel a little sloppy. But honestly, they're still really fun to solve and just satisfying to play through. And if you're planning to dive in, it's worth noting, seeing how those mysteries unfold firsthand really adds to the experience. There is a central mystery at the heart of the sinking city, but it's solved pretty early on. After that, you're basically along for the ride watching a bunch of Lovecraftian hijinks unfold. What really makes the game stand out, though, is the setting, a completely flooded city. Your main mode of transportation is a boat, and while the open world areas are pretty limited, most streets are underwater or blocked off, it still gives the game a really unique visual hook. Gameplay-wise, it's not bad either. The cases go beyond just finding clues and matching them up. You actually build out a case file, and when contradictions pop up, it's on you to figure them out. Add in the Cosmic Insanity Meter, which is a nice nod to Eternal Darkness, and you've got a game that's definitely rough around the edges, no question, but still uniquely compelling. When we say rough around the edges, we mean it. It's far from perfect, but it's also so different, so weird, and so fun that it ends up being absolutely worth your time. Next at number 4, in case you haven't played it yet, check out Bulletstorm. I'm mostly putting this one up here because it deserves love. People played it, but it didn't sell enough. It wasn't a big game. Look, even if you don't love this raw, immature humor, or maybe for that reason, if you love humor like this, Bulletstorm is just super special. Look, we love dumb humor around here. I know not everybody does, but we do. But Bulletstorm is more than that. It is an FPS, and it's a creative one at that. It's not like the best designed FPS ever or the most innovative or anything, but the developers did think outside the box by keeping it within the box, if that makes sense. Now, to be clear, Bulletstorm is by and large your cheerful gun shoot them up game. It's mostly built around a creative twist from other first-person shooters, specifically how points are earned. Unlike games like Call of Duty, where points are awarded for pretty much whatever you do, like it doesn't matter how you kill an enemy, Bulletstorm gives you more points for doing it creatively. This can be as simple as grabbing someone with an electrical whip that levitates them in the air, giving you time to unload 2 clips into their face and kill them that way, or throw a grenade on an enemy's back and kick them into a group of other enemies to detonate and kill them all. The higher the score, the more flashy and awesome the murder, the more points you get. That's the kicker. It's all about how aesthetically pleasing the murder is, which is a pretty twisted thought, but in turn leads to a lot of creative matches and just a lot of fun. Now, Bulletstorm's a game that really whips you up. Like, you can beat it in like 6 or 7 hours, but you really want to go back through and play it once you have more abilities and stuff unlocked. It is a really good time. If you can get down with this game's tone, you're gonna love it. If anything, it can be a little distracting here, but I played it multiple times, so whatever that says can tell you something.
Go to arrest some freak? Find out you aren't as invincible as you thought.
Down at number 3, we've got Murdered Soul Suspect. Now, I swear this game is always on sale. Like, if you've been waiting to play it, you've probably already played it, because it's dirt cheap half the time. But if not, this might be the perfect excuse to check it out. And honestly, it's an underrated classic. Yeah, I know, the whole dead detective solving his own murder thing, kind of played out by now. We've all seen it, but this game nails the vibe. Released back in 2014, it takes you to a gloomy, haunted version of Salem, Massachusetts, and it just oozes atmosphere. If you've ever actually been to Salem, you'll appreciate how the game captures that eerie, haunted New England feel. Now, gameplay-wise, it's not rewriting the rulebook. The mechanics are fine, nothing wild, but the story, that's what hooks you. It keeps you guessing all the way to the end. Fair warning, though, it does touch on some pretty grim stuff, so heads up if that's not your thing. But the cool part, sneaking is so much easier when you're literally a ghost. It makes for some clever twists, mixed with simple puzzle solving and mini games to break things up. It's one of those acquired taste games, definitely not for everyone, but if it clicks with you, you're gonna love it. So if you're into adventure games, if you're into spooky Halloween vibes, or you just love that classic New England setting, this is your game. It'll pull you right in. Honestly, someone needs to track down the rights. Pretty sure this was a Square Enix joint, because we need more games like this. It's charming, it's weird, it's underrated as hell. Show it some love. Coming in at number 2, we have Sunset Overdrive. This is one of those rare games that's ridiculously fun, completely chaotic, and yet massively underrated. It launched as an Xbox One exclusive back in 2014, during a period when the console itself was struggling to find its footing. Sales were moderate and the timing was rough. A lot of players drifted away from Xbox at the time, and despite a devoted fan base, the game kind of disappeared into obscurity. Thankfully, it eventually got a PC port, so anyone can pick it up today and experience the madness. Sunset Overdrive isn't the prettiest game by modern standards, but its gameplay still holds up remarkably well. It's fast, frantic, and full of energy. A perfect mix of Jet Set Radio's movement, Tony Hawk Pro Skater's momentum, and the over-the-top weapon design of Ratchet & Clank. It's not a long game, but every minute is packed with action and creativity. The controls feel intuitive and exhilarating, allowing for endless traversal tricks and combos. There's a surprising amount of variety with different missions, enemies, and weapon types, keeping the experience fresh. It has a playful punk attitude without crossing into annoying territory, which is rare for a game with this much personality. The world itself is a vibrant, colorful playground. The city is designed for movement and mayhem, encouraging players to experiment with speed, jumps, and chaotic stunts. The humor is over the top and self-aware, almost like playing through a comic book or a wild Saturday morning cartoon. Even years later, it manages to feel alive and energetic, with an infectious sense of fun that most modern open-world games often lack. The game isn't perfect. Some missions could have been trimmed to tighten the pacing, but these are minor complaints in a package that delivers pure enjoyment from start to finish. The weapons are ridiculous in the best way, the enemies are varied and imaginative, and the movement system is fluid enough to make every encounter feel dynamic. It's a game that rewards experimentation and creativity, letting you chain together crazy combos while exploring its chaotic world. Sunset Overdrive also carries a sense of nostalgia now, especially for players who experienced it on launch. Its unique tone, absurdity, and fast-paced gameplay make it stand out as a reminder of what bold, innovative games can feel like. It's a title that deserves to be remembered, celebrated, and played even years after release. There's a timeless charm to it, and the combination of speed, combat, humor, and style is something that few games manage to achieve. In short, Sunset Overdrive is an underrated gem. It may not have a sequel, but its original release remains a standout, offering a memorable, chaotic, and incredibly fun experience that still holds up today.
Down, bitch! Can't fucking move! Eat shit, asshole!
Now finally, over at number 1, we have Mafia 3 Definitive Edition. Look, we're putting it at number 1 because we're not afraid to admit that this is a flawed game. It's kind of like a middle finger. Mafia 3 is a weird one. Anyone on this list probably already has an opinion about it, but with the release of the new Mafia game, it's likely that people will forget Mafia 3. Honestly, it kind of deserves to be forgotten given some of the awkward stuff around its launch. But here's the thing, the game shouldn't just fade into obscurity. There's a lot of crazy, memorable stuff here, like the opening 30-minute sequence where Lincoln Clay dives into all sorts of wild scenarios. The game also gives us a New Orleans-based crime drama, and there's a lot happening. Sure, the gameplay can be clunky at times, and it definitely suffers from open-world bloat. You can kill an endless stream of pimps and pushers, which sometimes turns the gameplay into a slog. That said, plenty of players enjoy the open-world aspects, and that's totally valid. For me, the real hook is the story and the world. Mafia 3 is set in the 1960s New Orleans, a fascinating backdrop. Built on the legacy of the older Mafia games, the city feels detailed and layered. Driving around this unique setting, exploring neighborhoods, it all feels distinct compared to other modern games. The story and missions, which tackle racism and other heavy themes, sometimes overreach in trying to be edgy or dark. It can feel forced in places, but I appreciate the attempt, and it gives the game a memorable identity in the realm of mob games. Even the new Mafia game doesn't capture the same atmosphere. Ultimately, Mafia 3 represents a departure from the series, but it's a worthy one. The 60s setting, Lincoln Clay's journey, the narrative beats, they keep me invested. I think it's worth revisiting, even if it's just to watch some of the cutscenes, as a tribute to Hangar 13, the developer behind this game.